Welcome back to Oathmark. Here we got tonight's battle, 1,000 points between our Dwarven Kingdom and our Undead Kingdom. Our Dwarven army tonight, 1,000 points, is led by the one and only Ivan Drago in his Shire Spears, 20 strong. We've got a level 1 Dwarf Wizard here with Fireball. Got some dogs. We've got some archers, Dwarven archers, 2 units of 10. And over here we've got some soldiers for the dwarves. We've got a 16-man strong regiment. Looks to me about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, about 6 activations total from dwarves. The undead lands, we've got about 1,000 points of the undead army led by our level 1 necromancer Tut. We've got a tray of skeleton soldiers, 15-man strong. We've got about 17 ghouls in the in that tray. We've got a corpse fire up here. We've got spears, skeletal spears, 15-man strong, and a revenant chariot. Looks to me about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, about 6 activations for 1,000 points of your undead. Our dwarven army, led by Ivan Drago and our level 1 wizard who has a fireball, the dwarven wizard. We've got the deployed over here on the flank here. They've got the soldiers. They have the wizard, they have the archers, the Shire Spears are in the center. Their dogs are with them, and they've got some more archers off to the side. Facing off against that chariot over there, and you've got the skeletal soldiers, you've got the ghouls in the middle there with the corpse fire, and of course our necromancer behind them, and some spears off to the side. So the game board tonight, we've got some rocks here. They're going to be blocking your line of sight. Impassable terrain. Then we've also got the middle. We've got that forest with the rough patch of ground. So of course, you can't see through the forest for line of sight unless you're actually in it. And of course, the ground there does count as rough ground. So let's see how this thing goes. So we're almost finished the first turn here. This will go for 8 turns. The dwarves moved up over here, took a shot at those spears over there. They had to hit them on 8s. They have a defense of 9. They had to shoot 2, but they moved first with a small penalty, so shoot 1. So 8s, they got 1 8 on the dice. So no hits on the skeletons because from shooting attacks from bows, if it's they get half the damage. So 1 hit, half of that's 0.5 rounded down is 0. That's how the rule book says to do it. So no casualties, and therefore also they auto pass the morale test anyways. So that's that. Again, shooting is always good in most games, but against the undead, in this particular Oathmark, this will be troublesome for the dwarves who have set up a gun line here as we're moving towards the end of round 1. That chariot has yet to activate over there, and so do these archers over here. So last action here of turn 1, these dwarves over here took a shot at those skeleton spearmen over there. They did do a damage on him because they rolled a 10 and an 8. That is what they needed. So half of it rounded down is 1 wound and nothing on the morale because they auto passed morale and there wasn't any modifiers. So no further wounds there. So plucked 1 away. The chariot is making its way up here on the flank for next round, and we'll see what happens. So we're trying to set up a gun line here on this side, and over here we'll see if these guys can rush to them, and we'll see what happens. This is the start of round 2. The undead did win initiative on this and activated our Lich Tut. He was successful in activating, and he also was able to cast Reanimate on those skeleton soldiers, putting the guy back on. They lost last round from that shooting attack over there, and he's activated. He's done. So the dwarves have answered back. The dwarf soldiers on that side over there, they moved up 5 inches, then did a wheel to sort of put them in a situation where they might be able to eventually get in combat with these guys. We'll see what happens. So one of the downsides to run on the undead is you only get, these skeleton soldiers only get 1 dice for their activation. They rolled a 2, they got 1 simple action. They moved forward as far as they could. They couldn't even go their full moveset of 6 because they bumped into this giant rock. So that's as far as they go, about 5 inches. And then hopefully next turn they can pass their activation roll and get 2 actions to hopefully wheel around this thing and reset and make a charge maybe in round 3. We'll see what happens. Well, I'll tell you what, our dwarven archers over here tried to activate. They failed their activation, which left them with 1 simple action. Now, in Oathmark, you are allowed to make a shooting attack, even with just 1 simple action, but you get a small penalty for that. So they would normally have a shoot 2, but they only now have a shoot 1. They fire, and on these guys, they would need 8s or better. They got absolutely no 8s on their dice because these guys suck, and that's how they end. So the ghouls go next. They did activate successfully. They did get a 6. They had 2 dice to work with. They get it. They make 2 move actions. They're nimble. They just fly right through these woods, and they're teeing up the Shire Spears over there. Our archers at the top of the screen over there took a shot at these ghouls, and they did manage to pluck one of them off. Let's see, they have a defensive 9. They have a shoot 2. They didn't move first. So that drove it into 7s. They managed to get 1, but the ghouls automatically pass all their morale checks. And in order to take their wound off, would have had to have been a -2 modifier. And only -1 modifier. So, yep, just one guy. That's it. I'm sorry, no, they got they got 2 hits on that attack. And you have it on the undead rule. Yes, that's why there's only 1 there, not 2. So these skeleton spirits, despite being unthinking and all that stuff, did pass their activation roll with the 1 dice. 2 moves puts them almost up there, ready to do some fighting next turn with those dwarf soldiers. Well, the dwarf wizard level 1 tries to counter this thing. He tries to throw a fireball at those ghouls over there, but the fireball didn't go off, so that's where he sits. I'm thinking the dwarves should try to concentrate firepower on those ghouls because the necromancer lich back there, he has reanimate for his spell, but that only works on the skeletal spears and the skeleton soldiers. It doesn't really work on these guys as far as I know, so they're better off concentrating all their firepower on them to try to score their points. Undead activate the corpse fire. He was over here. He just, because on these solo units, they get a free pivot at some point in their turn. So he kind of pivoted and moved up, and that's kind of what he did. He had 2 activations, so I guess he could reface himself and go straight if he wants. Yeah, because the pivot would have been free, and then he moved up to get just behind these skeletal soldiers. Yeah, he probably should reface himself at the end of that. That's what he did. So we are at the end of the turn 2, round 2, what you want to call it. The Shire Spear stayed back. They're going to wait for them to get to them. The Revenant Chariot had left to go at the very end. He just went he activated successfully, and double move action puts him up there. He's going to try to get around these guys maybe next turn if he can. With a defensive 13, he probably will get it and do some damage, hopefully in round 3. And that's kind of where things sit right now. So right now, the only guys lost was 1 ghoul in the first 2 rounds. So again, shooting attacks can be okay in some situations, but against the undead, that's not the way to go. We'll see what happens. Start of round 3. Initiative will go to the undead, but the dwarves did roll double 3s, which is bad food. We had to select a unit in the undead army. They ate some bad food apparently before they came out here, and that will give that unit a +2 to its activation stat for the rest of the game. That'd be pretty impactful, and I think we're going to give it to... Let's give it to these ghouls out here in the middle. Well, I did make a small mistake here. So with the first activation, they activated Tut, the level 1 Lich Necromancer. He was back here. He was going to cast Reanimate on those guys. The idea was that, but I forgot Reanimate only works on skeletal soldiers and skeletal spears over there. They haven't lost anybody yet, so he won't be able to put this ghoul back onto them. Kind of a wasted blunder on my part, but that's the way it goes. But he is in the forest now, so he's immune from any line of sight stuff. Well, our dwarven little wizard here, level 1, was going to fire all the way over there at that fireball at that chariot, but unfortunately he didn't cast the spell, so that's going to be his action. So our first big combat happened. The dwarven soldiers did a wheel, moved into combat with these skeletal spears. They did a lot of damage. They rolled a 10 on one of their attack dice. They did, I think, a total of, was it 4? No, they did 5 hits total on them with their attack dice. And then, of course, they had the, these guys auto-passed their morale, but they suffer -2 on their morale. They lose another wound. That's where these 2 other guys came from. So a total of almost 7 there. And then over here, they just lost 2. And they passed the morale check, so they are not... they're not disordered. So now we have to do the pushback. The dwarves actually won this corner. Something kind of crazy happened over here. So as you remember, the chariot had moved up and was almost ready to charge the archers. They were over here. They did a wheel, and then they activated later, did a wheel, moved into combat on the flank of this chariot, figuring it was better for them to charge it than have the chariot charge them, hoping to win the combat. They did get a 10 on their one of their combat dice, but they couldn't roll an 8 when they rolled it again to inflict a wound on this thing. So no wounds. The chariot rolled his 3 dice. He did get 2 hits on them and pushed them back 6 inches over to here, which might not be good. They failed their morale test after that. Now they're disordered. And unfortunately, these guys have not activated yet. So you can kind of guess this whole thing backfired pretty bad. It is the luck of the dwarves because the skeletal soldiers activated next, and they rolled a 1 on their activation, giving them 1 simple action, which means they cannot move into combat with these guys. So, yeah. So as round 3 is coming to a close, it was time for the Shire Spears to make their move. So first move was 5 inches, and the second one was like 1.5 inches to get them into combat here. And they really did some damage, and they were rolling 5 dice with the champion dice. One of them missed. Their target number was 4 for these ghouls, and 1 missed, but 4 of them hit. And 2 of those were exceeded the target number by twice as much. They were an extra hit. Plus the champion die puts out an extra hit. They did, I believe it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They did 6 total hits on the ghouls off the attack. And then, of course, the ghouls auto-pass their morale test. But for every -2 modifier, it's another guy gone. And with 6 wounds, it's -3 modifier, which would mean that... no, with 5 gone, that's a -5. So 2 more would go. So it should be a total of 7. I may have more than 7 there. Yeah, I think I do. It should be 7 instead, if I'm doing that correctly. And the pushback will now have... the Shires lost a guy here, but passed their morale test barely. They'll probably push these guys back up an inch. So end of round 3. That's how it looks right now. Those ghouls in the middle are probably toast. Casualties over there. Casualties over here. Pretty even Steven so far. We'll see what happens. I got a feeling that corpse fire is going to torch those dogs with some fire breath, but we'll see if that happens. I think these guys are toast over here, so we'll see. And we are at the start of round 4, and the Dwarves army has 1 initiative, and they're going to activate Ivan Drago. He has command 1, which will allow him to, if he activates, which he did, he can have one of the unit within, I think it's within 6 inches of him, go 2, and that would be the dogs over there. It could be 3 inches. I have to double check the rule book, but I think it's 6. That's what I'm playing for. So they both successfully activated. So these guys will go first, and then the dogs. The Shire Spears with Ivan Drago as a champion go in there to hopefully finish off those ghouls, but he only got 3. The target number was, I think it was 4s, and you think they would get that whole tray knocked out of there, but they didn't. They all missed except for the champion dice. He got the 9, which was, okay, so it was a hit. He got 2 hits for exceeding the target number by twice the amount, plus 1 more for the champion dice, and that was the 3 that they took off. So, yeah, not a great showing from the Shire Spears in this one. So the Hounds were successful in finishing off that tray. So they have both activated now. The Undead decide to activate that Revenant Chariot, man. He does a wheel maneuver, goes into combat with him. Only did 2 hits on him. And these guys did pass their morale check. So thank goodness he wild charged, because he only rolls 3 combat dice, and he needed, let's see, he had 3 plus the 3. I think he needed 4s to hit these guys, and he rolled like horribly. He only got 1 hit and 2 misses on his roll, but his wild charge, he rerolled 1 dice, which he did, and that gave him a hit. So I punched out the 2. They did pass their morale check. Dwarves weren't able to punch. Level 1 dwarf wizard there with Fireball finally cast it successfully on that chariot, and he did pluck off a wound on it. How about that? So the Undead strike back. Skeletal soldiers moved into combat in the rear here and took off 2 guys, and then these guys failed to do anything back at them, and they were already disordered, so they failed their morale checks. They are now broken, and they are removed from the field. So before I remove those dwarves, thinking back, it probably wasn't the best idea to fireball the chariot. I mean, these guys should have tried to make an activation roll to try to get that disordered off them. Rally, but they never did. And, they couldn't because the chariot hit them first. So, yeah, it was all a moot point. So in a desperate attempt here, the Dwarven archers were able to pivot, and then they took a shot at those skeleton soldiers in the flank over there. They only managed to get just the 2 hits on them. But the undead, when it's shooting attacks, you have to have it. So only one guy got killed. And then, of course, they auto passed their morale test, and there wasn't -2 modifiers. No more guys got taken off. So it's kind of futile looking back. They're probably better off, but there's nothing else for them to do because their line of sight was blocked over here. So that's the best they could do. Pressing it up, man. They activated these guys, moved into combat. They punched out 4 wounds on them, and then 2 more came off because of the when they take their morale test, for every -2 modifier, 1 more comes off. That's why you have a total of 6 there. These guys were fighting back. They were supposed to head, let's see, a fight of 1, fight of 2 versus armor of 10, you had 8s. They did not get any 8s, got nothing on these guys. So there was no morale test to my knowledge. You have to have wounds for a morale test on melee, I believe. One thing I forgot to mention earlier was before all that happened, earlier in the round, the Necromancer had activated, but he failed his activation, and he only had 1 simple action, so he couldn't even cast Reanimate on these guys before all this even happened to help them out a little bit. So yeah, this was even doubly bad. The Corpse Fire did activate. He fire breathed the poor dogs in the back. It was a combat dice 5 with the champion dice, shoot 2. So the target was 6. He did get I think he got a 7. He got a 10. He got 3 total hits on that. So it could have been worse for the dog. They will survive it. That does trigger morale tests. Even if they didn't take casualties, they still have to take a morale test. The dogs passed with those, so they're okay. That is how we. Now that was only the Corpse Fire's first action. He has 2 of them, so he fire breathed them. He could move into combat with those 2 that are left and try and take them out. I think he's going to try that. So he is on rough ground, and that means his move stat is 6, but that have it to 3. I measured it out, and the dogs are just past 3 inches, so he can't charge them with that second action. So he'll just probably move forward about 1.5 inches or whatever. He can move 3 inches up, and then so the dwarves did get the initiative. And I was thinking about maybe trying to wheel those hounds around and try to get in there, but that's rough ground. And the hounds, believe it or not, are not nimble, so they do move 8. They can move 4 inches. I measured it out. If they did wheel, they still wouldn't be able to get it. Let me measure it again. So I went back to square one, and I activated the Shire Spears. They activated Command 1. The hounds were in their range. And remember that before I wheeled them, they were sitting out. Some of them were sitting outside there, so they had line of sight to them. They were able to also activate, so that'll be the Command 1. I wheeled them, and now, as you can see, they actually they move 8. So half of their move speed is 4. They can take a shot at that level 1 Necromancer, maybe end this thing right now. And let's see if that happens. Here they go. It would have been pretty epic if those hounds had taken out that level 1 Necromancer, causing this entire army to basically fall apart. But unfortunately, the hounds did no hits on him, and the Necromancer didn't do any hits on the hounds. So they both, it's a draw. They'll each be moved 1 inch apart from each other. And that's, yeah. So the Shire Spears did a little wheel and moved up, I got as far as they could with that rough ground. That was it. They finished that. And I guess when you think about it, though, the dogs did their job. I mean, they did activate this Necromancer. He won't be able to try to cast Reanimate on those guys over there. So I guess it was still kind of helpful what they did. And we'll see what happened with the Undead here. Spears did activate. They did an about face and marched themselves back here. I don't know. These guys only have a move of 5. They would be, yeah, they might not. I think they can just get there, though. We'll see. Dwarves will go for the dwarves and the soldiers. Now, they did activate successfully. They get 2 actions. They can go 5 inches. So, and then the second move in action would be 2.5. The second one, they could get there, just barely. And they're going to get there, and we'll fight a round of combat. As you guys probably figured out, the dwarves were successful in killing off his last 2 skeletal spearmen. And the skeletal spear did nothing back to them. So as far as I know, no morale test, but you don't take any wounds in combat. Candlejack / Corpse Fire took out the dog. So with his fire breath, then moved 3 inches over rough ground, trying to get some distance from these guys coming in. We'll see what happens. So skeletal spears, they pivoted. First action, they did activate successfully. And they're going to go ahead and try to move into combat with those guys there. And they're going to be passing over this rough ground too, just a little tiny bit. let me see if they can get. Were able to get in there, and they did 2 hits, 2 wounds on them. A hit over here. They passed their morale test. They didn't get a -2 modifier on that to pull another skeleton. So skeleton's going to win this and probably push these guys back 6 inches, I'm thinking. So that did not just happen. So the last activation that Dwarves had was their wizard, and he just moved up 6 inches. He shot and at the chariot, and he cast fireball twice in a row. Now he's gotten it off, and he rolled a 9 and a 10 as a defensive 13. Shoot 4 would bring it down to a 9. Now he did move first though, because he had to get in line of sight. I think he has. Let me double check that. He might have had fire. Okay, so the issue was, did he have to move first to get in line of sight? But I forgot he has fire over, so he didn't have to move at all. He could have he was within these guys here, and he wouldn't have had to move first at all. He could have cast fireball from back over where he was, which was right around there. He could have cast it, and he could have hit them anyways. So that being said, if we recalculate this, defensive 13. Shoot 4 would put that down to a 9. So that's going to be a 10 and a 9. He has killed this chariot and just saved the day for the dwarves. So here we are at the end of turn 5, round 5, what do you want to call it? That change of events have absolutely changed everything. That chariot is now dead. It's over there. That's 150 points worth of loss there. I think that the dwarves are going to win this one. They don't even have to really go after them. They can just play defense and kind of come back, and that's going to probably be it. The Undead have really no way to do anything here, so I'll play it out for one more turn and see how it goes. So in a desperation move, the Undead did win initiative. Corpse Fire activated successfully, got 2 actions. He Fire Breathed over here. He only took off 1 guy, though, and they passed their morale check. So that was the hope, that he would Fire Breath, they'd fail and become disordered, but that just didn't happen. So this game's probably over. But we'll see. We'll go a little longer. Dwarves activated next. They successfully activated. They got 2 actions. They wheeled around, moved into combat. Just barely made it through that little bit of rough ground over there. And this should probably do it. That is going to be the end of it. They swung around. They moved into combat with him. 5 dice they threw. No rank bonuses. Fight 2 versus this guy's defensive 8. Put in 6s. And they rolled. They got his 10 and a 7. And that'll do it. He only has 2 health. So he is dead. And because he's dead, they're automatically off the table, leaving only the Corpse Fire. He's also spellcaster control, so the whole army's gone now. So the dwarves have board wiped the Undead, and will be taking. So the dwarves have won campaign game number 1, the Border Clash. They can occupy an open border territory of the Undead Kingdom. Let's go see what they decide. So the dwarves, not liking those corpse fires, decide to occupy the Ash Waste, which means the next battle, if they're mustered from here, it's a small penalty to their activation stats, just 1 penalty to their activation stats. So that is what they decided to do. Let's go see what the next battle is. You record the results. You each roll a dice, and the higher the dice will be the attacker. So in this case, a 3 versus a 1, the Undead will become the attacker, and then they take their 3. And look over here. This will be an invasion, which is basically the attacker may attack any territory. And that's it. So then they'll muster the armies and have their campaign game too.